All right. Hey, everybody. Just wanted to start off and introduce myself. My name is Jamil Nasiruddin. I'm a criminal justice instructor here at the campus, and I also serve as the advisor for the Criminal Justice Club. Now, I wanted to introduce our special guest here today, just in case you did not know who he was. Sheriff Keybo Taylor was elected Gwinnett County's first African American sheriff on November 3rd, 2020. Sheriff Taylor's illustrious career in law enforcement was marked by many firsts. A native of Lawrenceville, Georgia, Sheriff Taylor joined the Gwinnett County Police Department in 1983. His 26 years of law enforcement experience included serving in undercover investigations, which encompassed the Criminal Investigations Division and the Special Investigations Section. By 1994, Taylor was assigned to the FBI Drug Task Force. In 1995, he became the first African American promoted to the rank of sergeant. He continued his career as a supervisor in the uniform division. Taylor also served as a first line supervisor in special operations for the COPS program and criminal investigations for the narcotics squad. In 2000, Taylor was promoted to lieutenant and served as unit commander leading the Gwinnett County Drug Task Force. By 2007, Taylor received his appointment as major. He was the first African American within the Gwinnett County Police Department to achieve the rank of major. As major, he managed both the East and the South precincts. Sheriff Taylor credits a major portion of his career advancement to his educational and professional development. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Mercer University and a master's degree in public administration from Columbus State University. He received his certification in intermediate, advanced supervision, and management through the Georgia Peace Officers Standards and Training Council. That is the post-certified council here in Georgia. Sheriff Taylor is also a certified general post instructor, a graduate of the Georgia Law Enforcement Command College, Class X, a graduate of the DEA Drug Unit Command Academy, I didn't know that existed, and a certified crisis intervention trainer. Sheriff Keybo Taylor took office on January 1st, 2021. Sheriff Taylor's first days in office were marked by an end to the 287G program, the dissolution of the litigious rapid response team, the installation of an anti-gang unit, and the implementation of the trafficking and child exploitation unit. And without further ado, I introduce you all to Gwinnett County Sheriff Keybo Taylor.
Thank you very much. I didn't know that the drug unit commanders, is there another microphone or anything? Am I good here? Thank you. I didn't know that the DEA had a drug unit commanders academy either until I got there. All right, I'm gonna give everybody a chance. Jamil, I just got one quick question before you get too far. You said that this is a percentage of their grade, correct? 30%. So I'm gonna give everybody a couple of minutes before I get started with the lecture to go ahead and get your recording devices. I think y'all got recording devices now, notepads and all that kind of stuff before I get started. Okay, that was a joke. I just, you know what, I just wanted to see the look on your face when I said that. Because so many times I've been sitting out in the class space and people will come in and they're giving us the syllabus. Did I say that right? And they're talking about what we're going to go over in class. And I have this look on my face when they start to tell us about how much work we got to do. And it's like, man, how am I going to get all that done? So from standing up here, I just wanted to see what your faces would look like when I said that. Would it be a look of shock, a look of disgust, or whatever? But more so on a serious note, here's what I want you to do. Okay, the auditorium is not full. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, take a second. And if there's anybody else in the room with you that's going through classes in school, getting instructions or whatever, just look around for a quick second. Do it in here. Look around. Look around. So I'm going to ask you a question. You don't have to answer it out loud. What do you see? What do you see? Your peers. Do you see future sheriffs sitting next to you? How about directors of GBI, directors of FBI, judges? You don't know who you sit next to. That was me back in 1983. I was the last person, and I'm gonna go back on some things here and tell you how I actually got into law enforcement. I was the last person hired in my academy class back in 1983. When I got there, I'm in class with people that one person in there was an 11-year vet with the city of Atlanta. And I'm thinking, I said, I must be the dumbest creature on God's created to come into this academy class. How do I compete with this? I see why I'm the last person that is hired in this class. That was my mindset. Not only did I go in with a defeated attitude to begin with, I flunked. You could only fail, I said flunk, you can only fail 3 tests, all right? Well, I failed 2 of them real quick, all right? Then I was called in, hey, Keybo, you got 1 more test to fail and we're gonna kick you out of the academy. Couldn't drive, sure enough, couldn't drive fast. Couldn't shoot good. But all of that was indicative of a little bit of my past that got me into police work. And I'm gonna move forward on some things. When I first got to school, I started at a little private Baptist college up in Cleveland, Georgia. 600 students. They knew when you came to class, they know when you didn't come to class, they know what your grades were, they knew where to come find you if you were not where you were supposed to be. When I graduated from there, I went to the University of Georgia, where they didn't care if you came to class or not. They didn't care what you did. They didn't care what you did, how much you drank, how much you partied the night before, if you studied. If you didn't study, they didn't care. I was not mature enough to handle that, okay? And I knew at the end, we were on quarters then. We wasn't on semesters, we were on quarters. And I knew that I was not gonna be invited back to the University of Georgia. And I had a little smart mouth, so I'm like, don't even bother sending me the letter not to come back, because I know I done flunked out. I flunked every class, okay? So I knew I couldn't come back. So now I'm wondering, what is it that I'm gonna do? You know, like I said, I had a little bit of a smart mouth, a little bit of a smart attitude about myself. But at that particular time, I found myself no money, no job, no school, because I went to school on the Pell Grant. My folks didn't have money for us to go to school. What am I going to do? Well, by the grace of the good Lord, you know, I met someone in the right place, in the right time, and I got into policing. And again, like I just said, I didn't even take that serious. Didn't take it serious. That's a job. It's just something because I had a vision of where I wanted my life to be and what I wanted to do. And with that vision, it's like, this ain't what I want to do. You know, I come in police for a little bit, get back in school, go back in, try to get back into the military, get my commission, travel the world. That just wasn't in the cards, okay? And I'm not going to talk much about my police career because anybody can go back in there and read that. But what I do want to talk about is the human aspects of how I got to where I was at. And hopefully you can take, you know, something from this, put it in your tool belt, okay? And pull it out along your journey from time to time and say, you know what? I heard this before. I could have took failure. If anybody go back and read or look up or watch the video of when I got, right after I was elected and I got sworn in, I talked a lot about failures. People don't want to talk about failure. I talked a lot about the scars that I, you know, got along the way on this journey. So everybody thinks that, hey, we just come in and, it's just like, oh, you're the sheriff now, you won an election, you did all of these positive things and everything is going right. No, it wasn't that way. There was a journey to get to where we are. And if you take nothing else out of what I talked about embracing your journey, good or bad. That's your perception of your journey. But even if your journey is taking you to a place that you're not comfortable, and you got to be uncomfortable, it's not always a bad thing. It's just preparing you for the next level of whatever it is that life has in store for you. I grew up here in Lawrenceville, Georgia, okay? Lawrenceville Police Department, and let me back up just a little bit. I grew up, I ain't that old, but I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, all right? And for some of y'all, I know that this is some things that you read in the books, but there was a lot going on in this country in the 60s and 70s. A lot of it wasn't putting Black people and people of color in good positions during that time. Civil rights going on, rioting going on, police brutality at a whole nother level that we had never seen ever in this country before. That's not to say that it wasn't happening in the 40s, in the 50s, but when Black people first started to realize and started to do things to work and stand up for their rights, the violence become exasperated. The attitudes were stronger, anti. I grew up in a neighborhood, I grew up in the projects here in Lawrenceville. Here in those projects, dealing with the Lawrenceville Police Department wasn't a good experience. Let me say that again. It was not a good experience. In case you didn't hear me the first 2 times, I'm gonna say it a third time. It was not a good experience, and you can draw from that whatever you want to come from. So you see a young Black man experiencing some failures in life, some difficulties in life. Now all of a sudden you present me with the opportunity to be what I had such a negative perception of. My experiences. Our experiences shape us. Our experiences mold us. We are our experiences. So you see, I had some challenges to overcome right off the rip, getting into this thing. There was a lot of distrust. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I looked at some of the people that were still in policing at that time that I knew had did things, man, that was not a good representation of what law enforcement is and what law enforcement should be. I saw the brutality, saw it firsthand. And one of the officers that I saw brutalize some people, we had just got finished at the skating rink. Very short story. Once we got finished skating, we went over to the McDonald's over here in Lawrenceville. That's what we did every Sunday. The crowd made the management uneasy. They called the city of Lawrenceville out. That's one particular officer came out and he was brutal. He was brutal. I saw people getting locked up for nothing just because they wasn't sitting down. Moving forward in my police career, I had another chance to have another encounter with this same officer, same guy. I watched him brutalize a 17-year-old kid. So we can sit here and say, did race have anything to do with it? No, this was a white kid. Today I sit here and I tell you, I don't feel good about the fact that I did not have the courage at that time to stand up and say, hey, this is somebody that should not be in law enforcement. I didn't have the voice. I didn't have the platform. I didn't have the audience that was going to listen to a 23, 24-year-old male that they probably didn't respect that much of me anyway. But again, from that date moving forward, did I think that one day I would be the sheriff of Gwinnett County? No. But those experiences shaped and they mold me and they pulled me here. And I thank God that today I'm a decision maker. I'm the gatekeeper. I can affect how people treat people, what we do, how we do every day. And if people can't get on board and treat everybody, I don't care what your race is, care what your ethnicity is, what your gender is, it doesn't matter. Everybody deserves to be treated with that level of dignity and respect. Now we all see the big things that go on here in Gwinnett, in the United States. I'm not going to call names, but we can go on and on and on. Seems like it's ever ending. The brutality, the judgment of brutality. Race is a component of the judgment of brutality. But you have to go back and ask yourself, what is it about your leadership in your area that make people feel like that it's okay to do what they do? So those are some of the questions that when I came in and I became sheriff, I'm like, what is it about me that people are either going to respect me and do what we're supposed to do, or will my agency run amok? We came in, we had some, hopefully I'm saying this right, unprecedented challenges coming in the door. And I'm gonna make it a little bit personal. There was people that did not want to see a black man come in and be sheriff of Gwinnett County. They made that known. Those forces started right off the rip. Gwinnett County was changing. The culture of Gwinnett County was changing. People expected different. People expected a different level of professionalism out of law enforcement. We were in the middle of the pandemic. And I think one of the questions that you folks wanted me to answer was, what do we do to guide our agency through the pandemic? So I'm gonna ask you a quick question. Everybody in here know who Benjamin Franklin is, correct? Okay. If any of y'all seen, there's a documentary by Ken Burns that has come out on Ben Franklin. Has anybody seen that? I know you're busy, but if you get a minute, go back, YouTube it, or whatever you do. I don't know how you find it, but go back and look it up. And what they talked about, and if we can agree upon something, what we agree upon the fact that Ben Franklin was one of the smartest people in our history, documented people in our history. We all know what he did during the Revolutionary War. You nod your head yes if you understand what I'm saying, okay? They talk about the fact that he had a 2-year education, okay? He went to school. He was in formal school for 2 years. And outside of that, he had such a thirst for learning. He taught himself how to read. He taught himself how to write. Not only was he an editor, he was a publisher. He was an inventor. He was an ambassador. He was one of the most important figures that led us through the Revolutionary War, and an author on our Constitution. But one of the things that they talked about was, if you get a formal education, you're going to learn things that you need to know. You're also going to learn things that you probably don't need to know. I know all of us are sitting here like, why have I got to take this class? Why have I got... It was like that with me with calculus. Why have I got to take calculus? I went through calculus. I made it. Barely. Pass, fail. I passed it, okay? So it was nothing to sit here and snout about and say I did good in it. But I told the doctor, I can't remember his name right now, but I went to him and I told him, I said, look, I need my degree, okay? I've been policing for 22 years. I cannot advance without my degree. I said, I got to take this calculus class. I said, I can't even spell calculus, but I got to have it. I will never use it. Probably as soon as I close the book, that's going to be the end for me in calculus. But the point that I'm trying to drive home is that when we got into the situation with the pandemic, we didn't know what we didn't know. We couldn't rely upon the state. We couldn't rely upon the federal government to give us guidelines because we know that those guidelines change by the day because they didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew exactly how to navigate. You hear words about never before, unprecedented, and I mean, and it was scaring people to death. And that's how it was. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I went in with some sense of bravery. When I went into a situation that I didn't know. We didn't know what to do. We knew we had to do something. We knew that we could not continue to operate in the manner that we had operated prior to COVID. How do we keep the inmates/residents safe? How do we keep our staff safe? What do we do? What happens if we have a serious outbreak in here? People coming in and out of the jail. But again, what I didn't know was okay, because it was fine. We had to do what we knew to do. What we did was we made some significant changes in there as to how we did business. And some of those changes is still what we do today. We still got COVID. It's not what it was when I first took office, but some of the things that we learned are still there. So where am I going with this? Sometimes, man, you got to think outside the box, okay? Just because this is the way we have always done it before in the past, that doesn't mean that that's how you got to do it moving forward. When I asked you just a second ago to take a look around, look and see who's in here with you. I'm sure that there's some brilliant minds, whether you're here, live streaming, or wherever else, there are brilliant minds out here that have ideas that's going to change the paradigm of what we do. I talked about law enforcement in the 60s and in the 70s, even in the 80s when I started. Now, it will change again. For you young folks sitting in here, what you see as law enforcement today will be totally different as we move forward in the future. But if you took enough of yourself to join a particular club like this, be interested in law enforcement, you're going to have to figure out what your role is going to be. What are you going to do? How do I play a part in this? Will I allow my situations and people to put me in a box? I'm sitting in class right now. I can never be, I can never do, I won't never get there. Or will you be that person that will sit down and compete with yourself, take your scars along the way, embrace your failures, recover from your failures, and be that change agent that takes us into the next phase of whatever it is? It might not even be in law enforcement. So what I'm telling you is these are life lessons. You get to control yourself. You get to control your life. You get to control your future. Or you can sit there and let somebody else make those decisions for you. It's easy to take your future out of your hands and put it into someone else's hands. But if you want to get to where you want to be, and what am I saying? I'm getting ready to put a bow tie on this thing. Never let your never let your dreams be bigger than your work ethic. Can I say that again? Never let your dreams be bigger than your than your work ethics. What do I mean by that? You dream big. You dream big. I wish I had dreamt bigger when I was younger. But your work ethic has to be as big as your dream. You have to put the work in to be as successful as you want to be. Years ago, I used to tell the young officers, now tell the deputies, preparation plus opportunity equals success. Say that again, it's going to be on the test, folks. Preparation plus opportunity equals success. And when I learned that, I didn't coin that, all right? One of the people, the guy that was over one of the programs I was in when I was going through my master's program, he used to tell us that all the time. And he said, you know, you control your preparation. You might not be able to control your opportunity. But if you control your preparation, once you get that opportunity, that's your recipe for success. I say it differently now. You can't control your opportunities. Create your opportunities. Create your own opportunities. You're in the right spot. You're in here. You're working on your preparation. You're getting your education. You keep your character clean. You stay out of trouble. You know, do the things you need to do to make sure that everything is in line. You get your work ethics. You get your education. You get your training. Get up and go to work every day when you're supposed to go to work. Go to school when you're supposed to go to school. That's your preparation. And then you create your opportunities. Do not sit back and wait for your opportunity to come. You get out and you create your own. If you got a job and there's 15 people on that job, what are you going to do to create that opportunity on that job for advancement? How do you set yourself apart? Do you do what the other 14 people do? Or do you put yourself in position to where the supervisors and the managers and the leaders and the owners can see your value and see your worth? Come out of the box. Step out of the box. Let your work be sitting there saying, hey, look at me. Look, see what I'm doing here. I'm doing extra. I'm pulling it in. I'm giving extra. In my agency, there's, what is it, like 900? Somewhere around in there. You think I can know what 900 people in that agency do? No, I can't. But what I can see is that one person is sitting there waving, look at the extra that I'm doing. I'm creating my opportunity for you to see me, for you to see my work, you to see my value. I'm going to get your attention. And once they get your attention and you get their attention, that's your opportunity. And that's your recipe for success. So I'm closing. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Do not be afraid to accept challenge. Don't be afraid to step outside the box. Did I know anything about being a sheriff? No, I couldn't even spell sheriff when I became sheriff. I had to sit down and learn how to spell it, okay? But you still got to be willing to accept that challenge. For us older people in here, it ain't over. We can always come back and we can reinvent, retool, put new things and new tools in our tool belt, and become brand new. Jamal, everybody, I thank you for this opportunity. I think, what do we got now? Questions? Yeah? Questions? All right. If somebody give me a hard question, I got deputies out here to lock people up when we get done. So let's see what we got. What's the first question that we have here? Yes, ma'am.
First, I want to say good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Fav, and I am the criminal justice president for the Institute. And I personally want to tell you, thank you so much for taking the time to see us. It's very important to us and for the whole Institute. And my first question for you is, is there anything good that you have done that the public is unaware? I said, is there anything good that you have done that the public is unaware of in our community?
What a question. As a politician, you always want to know and want the public to know what you're doing because that's what keeps us in office, okay? But as a law enforcement officer, as a humble person, I want our work to speak for us, okay? And it speaks for us. The most important thing that I feel like we can do is for me to use this position to show people, communities of color, communities that's been unrepresented, people that have been left up out of what we call the good life of law enforcement. If I can go into those communities and reconnect and let these folks see us in such a manner that when we're coming in and we're there to partner in, they see us as people. They see me as a dad. They see me as a granddad. We can sit down and share the fact that my problems and my issues are the same as your problems and your issues, and that we address those issues. That is the greatest thing I think that I could ever get accomplished here. Because we want to leave a legacy of trust. Let me say that again, a legacy of trust. And that has to start from me and my people that I have in leadership positions, and that we push that down. Next question. This man looked like he got a serious question over here. Okay. I think he gave you the go. You gave him the go?
Testing. Okay. So, a question here is, how does it feel to have so much power and authority being a sheriff?
Let me say this. In case y'all didn't do the math, man, I'm 62 years old. I thank God that I came in to be sheriff at 62 instead of 32, okay? The maturity that I have, it humbles me, okay? The power humbles me. There are things, man, that just like any person that comes into this position, my predecessor, the people that's gonna come after me, everybody has their own agenda. If your agenda aligns with the community and is about the right thing, you'll be okay. If your agenda doesn't, then it's gonna make it look like you got a power grab and you're doing things for selfishness. You're doing things for your own personal gain. I get my pleasure and my gains and my power comes every day when I come in. I see the people that I work with. If I can empower them to do their job, give them what they need to do their job, and if I have a good, happy workspace, that's where my power is. You understand what I'm saying on that? Am I making a little bit of sense on that? So, but I'm looking at you, man. What's the next one?
With the increase in gun violence in public places, such as colleges, what are your thoughts and recommendations for Gwinnett Tech to create a safe environment?
Good question. Very good question. You know, we want to talk about, we get a lot of the press, negative, good or bad, when it comes down to gun violence. But what we don't do is put enough emphasis on violence itself. And I think we need to start the conversation there. anything that you do, whether, whatever your safety plans may be, classes may be, studies may be, we need to figure out how do we best address the issues of violence when it comes to mental health, when it comes to our social economical development here. How are we living? How are we making our living? What stressors pushes us to the point? And also too, with our kids, we have to have a starting point. And the starting point should be with our young folks. What are we doing? What type of anti-bullying campaigns do we have to make kids feel safe? Folks don't come out here and join gangs just because they have something to do. They join gangs because they feel like they need to have that safety in numbers. And as we start to escalate what we do, if they're being bullied, people might come up with guns. So we have to start. We have to find a grassroots. We have to put boots on the ground again in these neighborhoods. And we know that we got particular neighborhoods out here, and I'm getting a little bit off subject, but I want to get this point in. And we know that we have areas that where there's a strong gang presence. We got to get in there, not just to go in there for enforcement, but we need to get in there and start mixing in with these kids and get these kids to know, and we need to understand what their situations are and whatever else it is that we can do outside of law enforcement to make them feel better that they don't need to join gangs. They don't need to resort to bullying. They don't need to resort to the violence.
With many police officers leaving the profession, what can be done to recruit new students into the field?
Say that one more time for me.
With many police officers leaving the profession, basically what we've seen exodus for the past few years, what can be done to recruit new students into the field? They're wanting to know what safeguards can be put in place to keep them in the profession.
Thank you. Anybody that comes into, well, let me start by saying with the recruitment and retention, okay? Recruitment and retention starts when I first have a conversation with you, just like some of y'all have had conversations with. That's my recruitment, and that's my retention. So if I'm having a conversation with you and I say, hey, have you took a look at the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office? So that's going to start where? It starts right here with me. What is it that I'm going to give you to make you feel like my agency is the best agency for you to come and be a part of? Are we professionals? Okay. Do we give good training? Do we equip our deputies and our civilians? Because see, part of the problem is we don't ever want to get caught up in just bringing in people to fill bodies in seats. That's a mistake. And sometimes, man, and as I said earlier, these are unprecedented times. So what we can't do as leaders in law enforcement is, I got 100 vacancies, so I got to go out here and get 100 people to come in here. Guess what? If I do that, who's to say that 70 of those people are folks that never should be in law enforcement? So you can't play the panic game. You still have to keep your standards high. You still have to vet people coming in the door. We still have to put our people through training. Once we've vetted those people, and even if they get through and we get them in and we find out that these are bad actors that don't need to be in law enforcement, you got to have the courage to get them out. So I'll hold vacancies, all right, to make sure I get the right people coming into this agency. Because what did I say was the most important thing to me? It's the reputation of this agency to everybody. I can't sit down and tell a person you can't have your prejudices, your biases. Can't. Everybody has them. Care who you are. You might not have a liking for good-looking, bald-headed guys with uniforms, okay? That could be your prejudice. It's okay. But you can't bring your prejudice and your biases to work. However it is that you do, you have to check those prejudices and you have to check your biases at the door and come out here and treat, these good-looking, bald-headed black guys the same as you would anybody else. That it? Sure.
Not gonna. So my question out of curiosity, can citizens of Gwinnett County expect you to run next sheriff election?
Expect me to run
Yeah.
for re-election?
Yeah.
If I say yes, are you gonna vote for me?
I don't live in Gwinnett County, so.
Okay, would you get somebody in Gwinnett County that would vote for me?
But I can tell them to vote for you.
You can tell them to vote for me. You help me raise money.
I don't know how to do that part.
We'll teach you how to help me raise money. Yes, I am running for re-election. Yes, ma'am. Well, like I said before, what inspired me to get into law enforcement to begin with was I was broken. I needed a job. I never have been that person that said, hey, I want to grow up and be a police officer. I was at a very down point in my life. And it was just the opportunity that came up. To be sheriff, like I said, I put myself in a box. I never dreamed big enough before to say I could be sheriff. Didn't see it, couldn't see it, because I let so many of my other naysayers and everything else convince me that this is something I couldn't do. But when I made up my mind and I said, you know what, I think I'm gonna run for sheriff. And the more I started to talk about it, put it out, the more people came along, more folks started to support me. And let me tell you, there's only been two things, and this is one of the two things I've ever done in my life that I couldn't talk myself out of doing. And it just seemed like every time, man, it looked like, hey, we're not gonna make it, we can't raise money. I'm not reaching these people. Pandemic came in, we couldn't get out, we couldn't knock doors. I couldn't go meet people in person. We started having how to do Zooms. It became challenging. But that was just part of the preparation to get me to know that I had to come in and do things differently. This is the way that it is now. Okay. A lot of these changes are permanent. We may never go back to the way we did things pre-pandemic. So we learned. But to say what it is, I don't know how spiritual y'all are, man, but for me, it was strictly God. Who said amen? Okay, folks. Once again, I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I hope to see this club at my facility sometime in the near future.
We have 3 more if you got time.
3 more questions?
And we're not.
Okay. What is it?
Okay, so the first question was one of the members in the audience heard you say that things were different 60s, 70s, 80s, and he wanted to know if the hiring standards have changed at the sheriff's office since times are changing and people are changing and mentalities are changing. So he wants to know if your standards of hiring are keeping up to date with the changing times.
Yes, we have pretty strict standards. There has been some changes along the way. I think like when I came along back in the 80s, we had to do a polygraph and they ask you questions like, have you smoked weed within the last 5 years, those type of things. I don't know where some of those questions are, but the standards in the vetting process is still we've not lowered any standards. And, I know that it's much more of a professional process now. And we do get good candidates to come in. We get good people, man, that has made it into the agency. And unfortunately, we've had some good folks that, for whatever reason, did not meet some of these standards and they didn't make it in.
And then the second question is what programs does the sheriff's office do, or what does the sheriff's office do to bridge that gap with the community? So do they play baseball games with the kids in the community, or what is something that you guys
Dude,
do?
do I look like I play baseball? No. We have, first of all, it's incumbent upon everybody that plays a part in their day-to-day interaction with the public to give a positive perspective of this agency. But we also have our community outreach unit, and you'll see them out. Man, we do a lot. We've done a lot of food drives, especially coming up out of the pandemic. We partnership with a lot of the faith-based leaders here in Gwinnett County. We've done events with the school system here in Gwinnett County. Every year, we've done a book bag drive where we collect school book bags and school supplies for the kids to go back to school with. I think this last summer we got about 4,500, about 5,000 book bags. I'm proud to say it was the largest one in anywhere in this area. Also around the holidays, we do a food drive where we collect and we give out turkeys, hams, roasters, side boxes. And again, but how many did we get this last go round? About 3,500. We were able to provide food products to people, to about 3,500 families. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Sheriff Taylor, Melvin Everson here, VP of Economic Development. Thank you so much for being here. When I was City Council Vice Mayor of the City of Snellville, I was over the police department. And I'm currently working with the gentleman, Eddie Lofton. As you know, technology is changing the way how we conduct law enforcement now. He has implemented, well, not implemented, come up with some Safe Talk technology. He has the patent for it. It allows police officers, sheriff's officers across the country to speak to a motorist without ever having to leave their vehicle. I would love to share that with you because we met with the Georgia Department of Transportation. They're behind it. And it's a revolutionary change in the way we do law enforcement here as far as de-escalating possible violent situations when it comes to law enforcement. I respect you guys. You put your lives on the line every single day to protect the freedoms that we enjoy in our properties. And I would love to share that information with you so you can see how needed this is. And we met with the second in command at Tyler Perry Studio. We met second in command with national football player. If I call his name, you would know who it is. We met with the governor team, and we have a letter of support from Georgia Department of Transportation, and they will be doing a beta test with this software to see how viable it is. It's revolutionary when it comes to law enforcement. Safe Talk technology. I would love to share that with you so you can see it in action.
Absolutely. We'll get all of the information before I leave up out of here today. And we'll like to come out and be a part of that demonstration.
Yes, we did a beta test with the City Police Department in Snellville, as well as we met with Mayor Newton in Norcross in regards to this technology.
Absolutely.
They're on board with it.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Sure. Community outreach encompasses everything, including recruitment. Okay. You know, I campaign on my promise to be inclusive for everybody. Right. And with that, we will come into, and I think I saw you, you just reminded me, you saw me at an event the other day. We go to different events. We're looking. What we do is, you know, if we can identify community leaders, and once they begin to trust us, we ask, hey, is there anybody in your community that would be a good fit for us here in our law enforcement community? So I can't answer questions in your community, just like you couldn't answer questions in mine. Your needs are specific to you. Mine is, directed for me. So the only way we do that and bridge that gap is that when we bring in more trusted people and we listen and we figure out how to marry those ideas together and come up with solutions that works for everybody in all the communities. Is that it?
I think that's all. The only thing else is just having a picture with the club members.
Come on then, let's do it.